Thank you, April.
Yeah.
Well, I better get started because even if there's people coming in, we actually have a pretty tight time frame here for you today because we have a bit of information to get across and yet only an hour and a half for you. This presentation is for scientists who plan to submit proposals for sponsored research funding. So if that's why you're here, then great. I know that you're probably, many of you are attending because we have some excellent guest speakers for you today. We've got Christine talking about writing proposals, resources, scientific content on proposals. Anna Gold from Outreach is going to be discussing broader impacts and outreach with broader impacts. And Susan Sullivan for diversity and inclusion on proposals, and also probably impacting broader impacts for diversity and inclusion. So that's really a great guest speakers that we have for you at the end of our session. You have to wait through ours. It's a bit of a disappointment, but at least it gets us to have a little bit of a session for you first. And we're the CIRES pre-award team, and we're pretty much going to go to 11 on content, and then 11 to 11:10 for questions. And questions and answers that hopefully we can delve into anything that you find as we can actually deal with some critical issues that way, hopefully. We want to tell you what's new, some changes for NSF and NASA Roses. We have a little bit of section on basic proposal submission procedures, proposal development process, and then we'll have the question and answers. So that's what it's looking like for the session. I'm going to be doing the changes for NSF. April's going to be, and I'll do introductions in just a second. We're going to have to wait for that. But just to let you know that April's going to be doing NASA Roses updates, and Cameron will address basic proposal submission procedures, and then Marcos will come with some jokes and budget development process. Okay, and I'll be back for you for the question and answers. The CIRES pre-award team, and I was maybe the first slide with just the organizational chart with the pictures. Oh, there you go. And so we operate under Gretchen Richards, the finance director for CIRES, who reports to Walid Abdullati. I'm in charge of pre-award. Jenny Bell's my backup for pre-award lead, and we have some excellent proposal analysts for you. We have April, Marcos, and Lisa, and Cameron. And April, Marcos, and Lisa come to us with many years of work and excellent work at Office of Contracts and Grants. That's the central office at CU for proposals. And they have put in a lot of effort there, and we stole them, and they're over working for CIRES now and have been for quite a while. So they bring such great experience and knowledge for our team that I don't really even have to worry about the process at all. And Cameron is our newest member. He comes to us from graduation in last fall in December 2019 at CU, majoring in natural resource environmental economics with a minor. That wasn't enough, so he had to get a minor in business analytics. So he's joining us with a great background in education and starting a career in pre-award. Not that anyone ever finds them, they just find themselves in this kind of research administration career, but he's starting his career with us and doing so well. So and that's a little bit of introductions for you. I want to do proposal success rate for you, just so you give you an idea of what CIRES has been doing recently. And the best year to give you is fiscal year 2019. 2020, if I showed you, would not look as good. And that's because we still have proposals that are being approved, accepted, and awarded. And our rate would look quite a bit smaller than it will in a few months. So I'm just showing you 2019 and 46.7% success rate on our proposals that are submitted, which is very high. And the last few years have been quite high, maybe not this high, but still quite high. So this is a rate I wanted to be able to show, because it's just not a normal acceptance rate for success rate for proposals. Okay, what's new? What should we tell you about, since we just have a short period of time and we have to pick and choose? We want you to know, of course, and you probably already do, but we have coming up, NOAA program, Weather Program Office and the Climate Program Office have funding opportunities. CPO and WPO. WPO, you'll recognize as the old OWAC solicitations. Each of these, the WPO and the CPO, have multiple competitions. Now we're looking at, for CPO, having, I believe, six competitions, and WPO having three competitions in their solicitation this year. WPO, which are old OWAC, right? So many of you will be interested in this one, is observations, SBES, and JTTI. Those are the three for OWAC/WPO that is being offered this year. Now, these WPO is pretty much due November 18th, and CPO is due November 30th, except there is one competition in CPO that is due earlier than that, and that's, I believe that's October 19th. And the competitions, AC4 combined with COM. We have MAP, MAPP, two of those for MAP for competitions, and a COM CVP competition, and adaptation science program competition. So these are big for our scientists that are sitting over at Davis Skaggs Research Center, and those competitions definitely need to be considered. Also, Christine brought to my attention this week or the week previous that there's an important carbon cycle science submission for NASA. NOIs due September 28th, full proposals December 3rd. Okay. Of course, there's always big for us is the Arctic and Antarctic NSF submissions. And those ones are still, I am very glad to say, are still rolling deadlines. So those ones you can contact us about any time. It's more up to the discretion of the principal investigator, the issues involved about when to get their solicitation in. Of course, with rolling deadlines, it seems like they can drag on forever also. So something to be concerned about. Something new that we've not experienced before when developing proposals is that long-term rentals for research purposes will now not be assigned facilities and administrative costs when you're budgeting. So that's just something really kind of new to keep in mind if you have that. It applies to long-term rental of off-site facilities. Okay. Not going to be assigned facilities and administrative charges for those costs. Okay. Also really important is what we've been dealing with. We thought it was going to be active in June. We got a delay. Everybody did across the country, and that it's not active until October 5th. But as of that date, we're looking at having to follow the procedures, the new procedures for building biosketches and current and pending documents for your NSF submittals. That's going to be we'll discuss that. And then April, we'll tell you about NASA ROSES, how data management plan is changing for NASA. And it's important now for very much more important for, and the text involved in that plan, where that plan's going, but how it's going to affect review of your proposals also and getting accepted. And there's a new NASA Earth Sciences template that April will tell you about for work effort and current and pending. They're kind of together, and how that works. And it is a bit of a change. It's quite significant, but they have some really good guidance on how to use it. And many different solicitations, even if it isn't an earth science per se, is asking for us to use that earth science template. And there's dual anonymous peer reviews. April will tell you, because I don't know. Let's see. All right. Just to deal with some issues that are not new, that are always here, but should be addressed, is that for our scientists sitting over at Davis Gags Research Center, we need, for all our principal investigators hosted over there, we need a letter of support from their lab division director prior to proposal submission, a letter with statements that acknowledge that the proposed research is within the lab's mission and that the space and continued infrastructure support that that lab provides will be provided to the hosted scientist if the project is funded. That's normal. We all know about. A point on PI responsibility. So for awards awarded to the University of Colorado, this is the CU employee, the CU scientist, who is the principal investigator. And the CIRES scientist has the responsibility in order to do what's necessary to conduct a successful project, to fulfill the duties and administrative responsibilities of that project, like coordinating the effort, making sure the progress reports are all submitted and appropriate. But along with responsibility comes the ability to make the changes and the choices. So it comes with the ability to make the decisions that what they feel is best for that science. So it's the principal investigator that gets to decide, the CU scientist that decides how to do the things to accomplish that scope of work. The PI, this should be the one directing and coordinating that scientific effort because they have the responsibility for that project. So CU and CIRES trusts that our principal investigator, our CU scientist, is the one directing that project, the CU portion of the project. If it is a collaborative project, it's the CU portion of that project. All right, moving on to PI eligibility. Now, there's a little bit of a change since even for me, and that's we had previously our teaching faculty and our research associates, they're eligible to submit as PIs and co-PIs without a need to obtain additional approvals. This is not the same for our PRAs, our graduate students, our undergraduate students, postdoctoral researchers. Now, there is a little bit of an issue. If you're a postdoctoral researcher and you have a research scientist appointment, a research associate appointment, then there is one part of the approvals that drops off. But if you're a postdoctoral researcher on a postdoc appointment, then you have the same approvals that we have to go through for the PRAs and the graduate students. So for a PRA, graduate student, or postdoctoral researcher to serve as a CIRES PI or co-PI on a project, or to submit a proposal as PI or co-PI, we need their supervisor's approval and the center's approval if they are in a CIRES center. This requirement exists so that we can guarantee that a research group in a center is willing to provide support, facilities, and space for that new PI, the scientist, and that the supervisor of that new PI feels like the scientist is capable of fulfilling the duties and administrative responsibilities of a PI on a sponsored award. Once we have the supervisor's approval, then we ask for Christine's approval for CIRES, for the graduate student or PRA or postdoc to be able to submit. You can drop off Christine's approval if you are a research associate postdoc. So a postdoc who's on a research associate appointment, but so it gets a little bit complicated, but that's what we pretty much have to follow through with. Moving along just to what's new for us and with NSF. NSF, we had a session earlier that CU OCG gave to CIRES scientists specifically about how to deal with the changes for the documentation for NSF. But NSF now requires that we use an NSF approved method to build the biographical sketches and the current and pending documents. So we either have to build the documents in Science CV using data from ORCID, or we have to use the approved NSF fillable documents. Science CV is Science Experts Network Curriculum Vita. It is a part of NCBI, the National Center for Biotechnology Information, which provides many services offered by this National Library of Medicine, which is an institute within the National Institutes of Health. But so SciCV is this service that is offered through NCBI and National Library of Medicine for NIH. And this service allows you to build now biosketches and current and pendings in NSF format, also NIH, but we don't have as many researchers that submit to NIH. In a NSF format, by pulling data from your ORCID, and ORCID being the Open Researcher and Contributor ID. We have for you the page that you're looking at right now, I believe, if you go to those two links, and we'll make these slides available to everyone, but if you go to these two links, it could give you specifically what NSF is requiring, right? That you basically have to use ScienceCV or you use their fillable PDF documents. And then you hear fillable PDF. If you've never used SciCV before or ORCID, like me previously, you would want to, of course, I'll just use the NSF fillable PDF documents, but there has been issues with the PDF documents. And as far as I can tell, the most concern that people have had is how it makes your proposal look, in that there's a lot of blank pages that get added that they don't want in there. You can't mess with that though, because if you try and mess with that document or change that document in any way, it makes it ineligible for upload into the NSF system and it won't be allowed. And so that is a serious concern. But if you're willing to put aesthetics to the side, and doesn't matter how many blank pages goes into your proposal, then you may want to use the current and pending document, but a fillable version. But people are also having trouble when they have to make any changes to that document. The amount of time it takes to actually move data around in that document has been very off-putting for people. So that is another concern. So there is still some administrative burden and frustration with using the current NSF fillable PDF documents, but we can all hold out hope that we will at some point have better PDF documents that NSF will allow us to use. But they're available via the two sites that you see on the slide, and also how to go and use SciCV and ORCID to build your documents. Right now, OCG, Office of Contracts and Grants at CU, is requesting and asking that everyone build their documents in ScienceCV. So it is really something to become acquainted for. Get your login, get in there, look through it, and even way before you have a desire to do an NSF proposal so that you're prepared. There's some really good frequently asked questions to go through on that. We don't have a lot of time here, so I'm going to go past that. And I've got for you some YouTube trainings on this that will help out significantly if you've never used ORCID and SciCV. After watching these 3 videos here, they're very short, but the information they give you is priceless, with not having to waste too much time figuring out how to operate in the system, especially the integrating into ORCID. You can run around in that system forever and not figure it out with just a few seconds on that video explaining how you're going to be able to get the link for your when you're creating your documents for that. ORCID is going to have, I'm sorry.
Hi, Ted. I was just going to say it's about 10 till 11. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I'm going to have to hurry things along. Jenny, thank you. We do have to, we're probably going to have to cut into our question and answers. And then you guys can contact us after the session for those issues. And so that we can still make, let's see, 11:15 for Christine. Let's see if that was the case. Yeah, 11:15 for. Okay, so the SciCV, watch those videos. It'll really get you able to use be able to do bio sketches and current and pending started in SciCFE and OrcID. There's other trainings, and you have at the bottom there CU's OCG's training to our CIRES scientists specifically for this issue. So hopefully that helps. I will at that point turn over to April for NASA Rose's changes.
Hey everybody, I'm April, and I probably have worked with most of you, but if I haven't, I've been with CIRES since May of 2018 and with CU since July of 2013. So NASA Roses, some of the major changes that they've made to their solicitations are there's this new emphasis on data management plans, as Ted explained. It used to be where you would just go, used to go to the cover page and fill out this little text box where you would put in what your data management plan was going to be. Now they actually want the data management plan in the text of the technical proposal. And not all of the solicitations have this, but most of them that I'm seeing are going to this format. They want more, they want to know how you're going to use the data and where it's going to be placed. They also want to know, they also want you to know that your data management plan is now being reviewed as part of the overall proposal. I think before it was almost like a formality, you just needed to have it in there. Now it is important. CU does have some research for data management plans, and you can ask any of us to lead you to that information if you're curious. This summary table of work effort is also new. It looks completely different. We were going to show you these links, and now I'm afraid we don't have time. Basically, what they've done is they've automated the table. So you just need to download your version of it. And then when I say your version, there are 3 different versions to choose from. There's a Word version, there is a PDF version, and there is an Excel version. There's 3 years are given in the table automatically. If you need more, you probably need the Excel version so that you can add years to your table. If you want instructions, you're probably going to choose the PDF version, which includes like 1 whole page of instructions on how to use the form. Not only are you going to list information for this particular proposal that you're working on, but they also want to know cumulatively how many more, how much more effort you have on other projects. So it'll have 1 column for this proposal and 1 column for everything else. And you're going to total it up far to the right and down at the bottom. It also wants to know your effort, PI, the co-PI or the co-I's effort, and anybody else on the proposal. And if you have any questions, again, ask us. The change that, the major change I think that they've made to this is that attached to this summary table is a current and pending format for you to fill out. They're getting pretty specific about what information they want, and it'll be included in the following pages after this summary table. And again, let us know if you have any questions on this. The dual anonymous peer review, they just want, they want to make it public that they are trying to do double blind reviews of the proposals to give new scientists more of a chance to look at the science and not at the scientist. Although the scientist's name, of course, still has carries a lot of weight, they're trying to make it so that people aren't, you know, favoring one over the other based on a scientist's name. If you want more information on this, you can go ahead and click on this link. OCG is also giving some information about this. I've seen 1 email come out and basically it said, we'll get back to you. So but as we get more information, we'll let you know what's happening. Really important, the new guidebook for proposers is being moved to this location here. If you've got it bookmarked on your favorites, you may find that you're being redirected. And if you're not, then you can go ahead and pull this up. I just did a search in Google 2020 guidebook for proposers, and it brought me to the new location. So, and again, this is, Roses is going to be different than this. This is for non-Roses proposals. So NASA has a 2-tiered approach. Guidebook for proposers is the top level. NASA Roses is the next level down. If you've got Roses, you follow the Roses guidance. Yes, it's super confusing, and that's why we're here to help you. I'm going to turn it over to Cameron.
Hi everybody. I'm Cameron. As Ted mentioned earlier, I'm pretty new to the team. I think I've been with CIRES now, with the finance group at least, for about 5 months. And I'm going to talk very briefly about the first steps that we'll take in developing your proposal, and the kind of time frame that we're looking at to get those things done. So on your screen at the moment are just the first bullet pointed things that we're going to need just to get things rolling right off the bat. Very simple information: who we're proposing to, when the project's supposed to be, all stuff like that. Basic budget information. It is worth noting, with this in mind, that even this applies to proposals across the board. Even very simple things like step ones and even some NOIs do require AOR OCG approval. So please, no matter what, if you're planning on proposing to anyone, please involve CIRES proposals with first steps so that we can make sure that everything gets done properly. So on the next page, I just have the sort of time frame we'll be aiming for. The first 3 documents that we want to get done initially are going to be your budget justification or narrative, and the proposal submission request form, or PSR. OCG has a policy. They want this to them no less than 5 business days prior to our planned submission date. So they have plenty of time to go through, review, make sure that everything stacks up. And this gives us plenty of time to make any corrections that they may find to any errors well before submission date. So nobody's sort of cramming and trying to get things done right before things are supposed to be going in. Preferably, along with this, we want to have all the documents in the proposal packet ready by this 5 business day mark, again, for the sake of giving ourselves plenty of time pushing. We acknowledge completely that this may not always be possible, but so if we can't make that 5 business day mark, we're looking hopefully by 3 business days prior to submission to have everything ready to go over to OCG for them to look at and make sure that it all looks good to them. A couple of caveats to these timeframes. If we're proposing to a sub-awardee, it's likely that the due date is going to be advanced to give the awarder institution plenty of time to get their full proposal packet ready, including all of our documentation. So please, therefore, give us plenty of time in advance, plenty of notice to make sure that we can get all your documents over to the awarder institution with that time frame in mind of the 5 business days. So say if the final product is due to to NASA or NSF on a certain date, and our awarder institution wants to submit to them by that time, they may want our documents perhaps a week in advance. So we would want to get at least our budget information ready 5 business days before that. And then the only other thing is if we're proposing to a solicitation, an RFP, an FOA with any specialized budget requirements whatsoever, so like budgeting by task, phase, job, anything that kind of stems outside of the typical CU budget template, we're going to ask that we have those budget details at least 2 weeks prior to submission, because we've seen it before. I imagine we'll see it again. Things can get quite complicated when things start getting layered up like that, and it's just best to have everything done well in advance so that it can all be reviewed and made sure everything is correct. And then to talk more about the budget development process, I'm going to hand it over to Marcos.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Marcos, your friendly neighborhood proposal analyst. Now, I want you alert and awake for this, the most exciting part of the presentation, budget building. Pause for applause. The budget is one of the most exciting parts of the proposal building process. It's my favorite, right next to submitting the hitting the submit button. And certain PIs like to do their budgets, and the other prefers to turn it over completely to us. Our preference is to build a budget from scratch. we're always up to date on the rates and all the changes and all of the little details that change so very often. And we can save us all a lot of time by doing all the work for you instead of having you do it and then us going back and building it better and like the Bionic Man. And so let us do it for you. We're happy to do it. Most of us are. I know I am. Some things, for example, like they're always changed. They haven't changed in a while, but they did change this year with the offsite facilities. Is items that are F&A exempt for, which are, for example, participant support, permanent equipment over $5,000, subawards after the first initial 25K, tuition remission, and for certain proposals like Ted mentioned before, the offsite long-term facilities. Those are also deducted from MTDC. We don't have to add F&A to it. And since I brought up participant support, I just wanted to remind you that those are costs that are incurred by participants in conferences, meetings, training activities, workshops, similar events. And participant support may include travel allowance, per diem, participant supply, tuition, and other related costs for individual participants or trainees, not the people who are putting on the show, people who are there to learn. So these costs imply an expert and novice relationship, and so the money needs to go to the noobs. And Cameron talked a little bit about subs before. When we are a sub awardee and they need more time. So when we have subs on our proposal, it's also very important to give us a little more time to include that in the budget, because we'll need more documents as well, biosketches, current and pending, justification, so on and so forth. So the earlier is better to avoid any unforeseen bumps. These things have a way of happening at the last minute and can create a lot of stress for everybody involved. So let's get those in early. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Marcos and Cameron and April. And you guys made up for me taking too long, so I appreciate it. What a good team. I do want to say, when it comes to the sub-awardees and having a sub-award ourselves, that it follows the time frame that Marcos and Cameron had identified. But we would be if we have a sub-awardee on our proposal, we're basically going to contact the administration at the other organization, our sub-awardees organization, and ask them to submit a proposal to us. And we would need to have all of that here before our 5 business days for our submission. So that's how that kind of works, where an organization where we're a sub-awardee to would be contacting us, basically. And if they don't, we will reach out to them and say, hey, what do you need for our proposal to you? And when do you need it by? And that would actually be a proposal prior to the proposal, because CU will be submitting a proposal to the other organization for their submittal to the solicitation. And it works the same way with us. If we have a sub-awardee, then we would contact them and say, you're invited to send a proposal to CU for your effort on our proposal to the solicitation. I hope that helps a little bit. And we have a few minutes for a question and answer. I think Christine will probably let us go until 11:15 for that. So if there are some questions that people would like dealt with directly, and you can always just email me or CIRES Proposals or any member of my team and ask them or me or CIRES Proposals any question, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. CIRES Proposals at colorado.edu. I think it was on the screen there a second ago.
Ted, there aren't any questions in the chat so far, but if anyone wants to take their microphone off and ask, we have a few minutes here.
Thank you, Jenny. That's a good idea. Does anybody have anything they want to ask about what we presented, and maybe say we weren't too clear on an aspect and get some more information? Anything you want to ask outside of the presentation for pre-award seminar?
Okay.
Maybe just remember you're muted. If you're trying to tell me something, please take off your mute button.
Maybe we should just jump ahead to Christine, and as questions pop up, I'll have them in the chat room.
Okay.
Sure thing. Should I go ahead?
I guess so. I guess we don't have questions. I did not see that coming. I'm going to turn over to Christine, who I'm sure you've been waiting for.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, right. Before I get started, thank you all for being here. And I really want to thank the pre-proposal team for doing this. As you can see, there's a ton that goes into getting these proposals submitted, and you have amazing resources in our team at CIRES to help you with all of it. And so I want to encourage you to make sure that you contact them early, as soon as you know that you're planning to propose anything. With the other thing that I want to mention, just to follow up on Ted's talk, is the new Orchid ID stuff that you need to fill in for NSF proposals. If you haven't been on there, go do it now. It takes time and it's a big pain in the rear end. And I really recommend, if you even have any thoughts about proposing to NSF in the future, to go take care of that as soon as possible. And you can work on it a little bit by little bit each day, adding information to it rather than having to do it at the last minute. So those are my 2 comments to the last talk. And Ted and the team asked me to talk a little bit about, just what goes into writing a successful proposal. And so I'll spend a few minutes and then provide you with some resources. What's amazing about working with Waleed is he found out that I was giving this and he's like, oh, well, here's a whole presentation that I've given and a whole workshop because he was program officer at NASA. So I'll follow up with that at the end, but I took a lot of his slides and recommendations rather than building mine from scratch, and I'm happy to follow up with anyone afterwards. But in addition to all of the budgets and task management and everything else that was spoken about before, you do have to write a proposal, a science proposal. And the whole goal is to convince someone to give you resources to do the research that you want to do. So remember that when you're writing your proposal, you are convincing someone. Next slide. I'm not going to go too many details, but the key factors of a research proposal is, a good scientific idea. Your results will have high value. Make sure that you have clear links to the funding agency goals and objectives. Make sure that you have clear and strong links to the solicitation. And I'll reiterate that again and again. A clear path for achieving goals. Make sure that it is well articulated and easy to read. And you can go to the next slide. Basically, you're answering 4 questions. Why this? Why the funding agency? Why now? And why you? Those are all the things that you have to get across clearly and concisely. Next slide. So again, I pulled advice from Waleed's presentation, but again, read the RFP. I can't stress this enough. You cannot just propose to do anything. You do need to tie back to the call for proposal, and reviewers will look to what the call is asking for and make sure that you are answering the questions that are in the RFP. And make sure that your proposal is well structured and articulate, okay? Because you don't know exactly who is going to be reading this. Do your homework, know the current status of the research, use complete references, know what your colleagues are doing because a lot of them might be reviewing the proposal, and then articulate well how your work fits into the broader framework of other efforts. And then include results that demonstrate that you can do the work. A lot of times you'll do some preliminary work or you'll actually do some of the work of a proposal and then put that into the proposal to prove that you can do it. And then next one. And then the other thing that you want to do is know your proposal's weaknesses and address them. So you want to cut off any questions that reviewers might have about your work. If you know that there are challenges or weaknesses in there, make sure that you you acknowledge and you point to them and say, I recognize that these are the weaknesses and this is how we're going to get around it or accomplish or overcome them. And then again, the whole time that you're writing this, think about how a reviewer might read your proposal and how it will be discussed. Provide strong input for your advocates. Next one. Again, I can't stress again and again and again, read the RFP, follow the instructions. I've seen it where proposals have gotten kicked out because they have the wrong font. They don't have the references in the right format. They went over by a half a page from the page limits. So make sure you follow the guidelines and you include all of the elements that they talk about in the solicitation. So Marcos and others earlier talked about making sure you have your budget, your CMP, make sure you have your project management plan, broader impacts, all of the components that the call asks for. A lot of times, and I specifically really like this as a reviewer, is that the RFP or the call for proposals will have specific objectives that they want the proposers to address. And so I think it's especially helpful for reviewers if you identify in your proposal the objectives that are called out by the RFP and then how you're going to answer them. So say, the call says you need to do A, B, and C. In the proposal, you can say, I'm going to do A and highlight that by X, Y, Z, and I'm going to do B by X, Y, and Z. So you are exactly going back to the call. Another really useful thing to do, and it's challenging and time consuming, but it's really valuable to have a colleague read your proposal, particularly if you're new at writing proposals, to get that feedback. It's also, and I'll go into this in a minute, it's also really great experience for you to read other people's proposals so that you get to know what is a good proposal and what is a bad proposal and what elements look great and what elements need work. So I really recommend having someone else go through your proposal and look at it with a critical eye. Next one. Some other recommendations, contact your program officer before you even begin the proposal. A lot of people do this, and it's very, very common. Program officers expect this. So don't hesitate to get on an email or pick up the phone, call the program officer and say, hey, I'm really interested in pursuing this call and doing this work. Does it fit? Does it align with what you're thinking? They won't tell you per se, oh yeah, we're going to fund that or not, but they can tell you if you're on the right track. They can tell you, no, that is completely off base. That is not what we're looking for you for. And provide some feedback whether or not it's worthwhile to pursue the work that you want to propose. So definitely reach out and do that ahead of time. I think it's really helpful. A lot of times that's what LOIs or letters of intent can do as well, but I really, I find it extremely valuable to reach out to program officers, and they expect it. So yeah. The other item that I really want to emphasize is get experience with proposals. Offer to serve as a reviewer of proposals for different organizations. Serve on review panels for proposals. And like I mentioned in that last slide, read proposals for colleagues if you aren't reviewing proposals for funding agencies. I think funding agencies are always desperate for reviewers. So you'll look great in the eyes of a funding agency if you call them up and say, hey, I'm available if you have any call for proposals or proposals that need review for X, Y, and Z. Again, it puts you in a great light for the funding agency as well as gives you really amazing experience. And then you can see what particularly when you get on panels and you're talking about your reviews with other panelists and other reviewers, it's really, really valuable to hear what other people are thinking, to know how the process works, and to really get feedback on what's good and what's bad. And by reading a whole bunch of proposals, you can really learn to identify what's strong and what's not. There was also another question that came up earlier about wanting to reach other collaborators beyond your immediate unit. And I think that's one of the roles that I hope to play for all of you at CIRES is if you're interested in working with someone who does X, or you want to learn more about the community that's doing Y, reach out to me. I'm happy to make introductions. I'm happy to help you identify other potential collaborators across CIRES, across CU, and beyond. I know my research is in, atmospheric chemistry and air pollution, but being here at CIRES for 3 years, I have a really great broad perspective about the different research that's going on across our organization and across CU. And so I'm happy to help any of you try to make collaborations or brainstorm on ways to make connections. I just wanted to mention a couple more things. Go to the next one. Yeah, so, and I want to mention, there are a ton of resources out there to help you write proposals. First and foremost, I wanted to mention the Research and Innovation Office at CU. If you're not aware, CIRES itself sits within RIO, the RIO office at CU. And RIO really provides outstanding resources because they want us to succeed. So if you go to the RIO webpage, which I'm showing here, they actually have a lot of resources for proposal development. They do provide proposal writing support. When I looked the other day, it was specific to certain calls for proposals, but I suggest that you reach out to them if you do want writing support. They do have one-on-ones, someone to sit down and help you put together a proposal together. And then there's also the research development and grant writing newsletters, which actually provides a whole host of really interesting advice. There's also emails that they send out regularly with all of the calls across multiple agencies and governmental funding agencies, and actually non-governmental as well. If you're not already getting those emails and you're interested to know what calls are coming up, I suggest you sign up for that newsletter. It's really, really great. And then there's also research funding workshops. So they do a lot of workshops to help people they want us all to be successful writing proposals. So if you want to click on the next one, and I want to mention there was just one last week that I'm sorry, if you missed it, but there's 2 more coming up. You notice Tuesday, October 13th is how to talk to a program officer. Again, Lewis Burks is CU's, I don't know if they're lobbyists, but they help us in DC interact with governmental agencies. So again, how to develop a positive relationship with their program officer. Like I mentioned, you want to reach out and contact them and find out if your ideas are in line with what they want, what they're interested in or what the agency is interested in, get feedback, help you write better proposals. So that's one. And then the next one is in November 17th about the next election and the future of research funding, in case you're interested in that. But again, they have workshops throughout the year, and I really recommend you go to the site and check it out. Take advantage of the resources that we have at CU. And then in addition to that, there are a bazillion emails or websites across the web that have advice and guidance for writing successful proposals. This is just one about top 10 hints for writing a successful NSF proposal. And then the next one is I just pulled 2, like 20 tips for writing a research proposal. Again, like if you go through, there's really common themes throughout all of these advice. Again, read the guidelines, assume the assessor has no knowledge of your field, make it simple, articulate. You are selling yourself. Again, if you're excited about the research, that can come across and then that can get the reviewers excited. So remember that. But I would really, if you are interested in learning more, to take advantage of some of the resources out there. And then I just have one more slide. Again, this was a pretty quick overview because I know this workshop today is including everything and anything that CIRES can provide with help to make sure that you are submitting and successful proposals. But like I said, Waleed was a program officer and has a full comprehensive workshop that could last probably an hour on proposal writing, that I'm sure he and or I could give. And so, again, like I said, this is kind of a brief overview. But if you are interested in something longer, I think we could easily put together another more comprehensive, I guess, Zoom call to help with actual writing proposals, going through the different components, more specific advice. And my email's up there. Feel free to, write me directly. I'm happy to take, I think I have a couple minutes and then I'll let Anna go forth. But yeah, again, if you're interested, let me know. Thanks, Vinay. I'll mark that down. Again, one other thing I want to say is we have we started a website thanks to some graduate students in chemistry last year called the CIRES EC Guide, the CIRES Early Career Guide, and it has mostly job resources. But what I'd like to do is add some of these resources for proposal writing on that page so that anyone can access it. And there's also a calendar on that web page. And again, this is open for everyone, not just early career scientists. But, and the calendar also includes all of the professional development as well as the proposal workshops at CU and we're trying to keep it as up to date as possible. So again, if you have any questions about that, I'll put that website into the chat. And I thank you for your time. And again, I thank the CIRES pre-proposal team for putting this together.
Thank you, Christine. What excellent advice for our scientists, so that all the effort that goes into doing a proposal, which is a lot of work, doesn't risk not making it to review stage to take into account these aspects that Christine has put forward. Any questions for Christine?
Oh, can I say one more thing? Sorry. I would also say that the CIRES mentoring program is open now for this next year. And you saw our success rate. It is amazing. We have a 47% proposal success rate across our organization. So obviously we have amazing scientists who write excellent proposals. If you are interested, that might be a way to connect with some scientists to get mentorship on how to write proposals, and another way that you could connect with people across CIRES. So I want to plug that one too.
So we would invite anyone to go ahead and off mute and to ask Christina any questions at this point. Okay. Christine, you okay if we move on to
most definitely
outreach? Okay. So then I'm going to turn it over to the director of CIRES Outreach, Anna, and she will address broader impacts outreach can do for broader impacts and how important you should be considering outreach to be for broader impacts. So here's Anna Gold.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks, Christine and everyone. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can. I can.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm Anna Gold. I'm the director of the CIRES Education Outreach team. And you can see here on the first slide, we are a pretty big team. We have 16 members. And what I wanted to say is that, or highlight that there's a huge diversity in this team and a lot of experts that are all here to support you and work with you and bring maybe the expertise that you personally don't have, but that you would need for a strong broader impacts plan. So we do have K-12 educators, we have university instructors, we have PhD level scientists that really are really good in understanding science and help you translate your science, and graphic designers. And then we also have a team of evaluators and cognitive psychologists that can help you measure impact. And that's one of the things we always try to highlight, that outreach is important, but it's also part of your scholarship. And as you report to NSF, especially, they require you in your NSF prior support to highlight what you've done under intellectual merit and under broader impacts. And if there's some outcomes like a publication or other scholarship, that's going to be really good for your next proposal. So we're here to help you design or develop or imagine a great broader impacts plan for your proposal. We have, here's just a series of 5 different fields that we can help with. So we can help you imagine how to broaden the impact of your science. And we're here for brainstorming, and we can also do the work. But if you say, oh, I just want some ideas, and then I'm just going to do that by myself, there's no, if you contact us, there's no commitment that you work with our team. But if you do want to work with our team, that's also an option. So we can explore whatever you need. We also, if you, Christine mentioned earlier that having a very good postdoctoral mentoring plan or other graduate student support, if that's part of your broader impacts vision, we're here to help even write postdoc mentoring plans or support, put you in touch with resources, how to support your mentor, your postdocs well. We also provide a lot of outreach and engagement opportunities. And if you are, for example, if you put a career proposal in to NSF, one of these early career high stakes proposals, there's often course transformation or thinking about teaching at the undergraduate level. All of these are things that we can help you with. We have experts on our team that work with all different audiences. We have a lot of expertise around supporting teachers and working with students. We do have some informal educators, which is, informal education is anything, museums, is libraries, it's like anything that's not in a formal setting. And also, how do you reach the broader public? And that's just nice to have a team with a very diverse background. And so I think there's going to be a nice menu if you're interested, and that might meet your interest, because one of the things that we're interested in is doing something that's also fun and interesting for you and inspiring, and that connects with your science. And so if you have a personal interest, we may have the right person to connect you with. Or we are very connected in the entire education outreach community. We can also tell you, why don't you talk to this program, because that seems like a great fit for what you're trying to do, and we can introduce you to some people and colleagues in the community. So how do you go about contacting us? So just get in touch, send me an email. We would come up with a time to meet and talk, ask you what your science proposal is about. We can then just brainstorm ways that we could help, and what just from an educational perspective seems like a good match to your work. And then we are here to help. We can also help write the broader impacts plan that you have to develop. If there's a budget associated with the plans, we can do that in collaboration with the proposal team, of course, and hope that that's all going to help to broaden your impact. So there's lots of different things we can do, from proposal writing, fellowship, needs assessment, evaluation work. Just come talk to us. And so I was thinking, I was going to share with you just a few examples, because I know that broader impacts for a lot of people, maybe, I'm going to sponsor an undergraduate student or a grad student, and that's kind of how I broaden the impact of my science. But there's lots of other things you can do, and I'm going to just share maybe a handful of examples of what we've done in the past, and just to give you a little flavor. So in general, I talk a lot about NSF because NSF has, as you know, broader impact is a strong requirement, and is I think NSF claims it's going to be on par with the science merits in the review process. That's likely not the case. Depends obviously on your on the program officer, but it's definitely increasing in importance that you have a solid plan. So there's so between these general proposals that have broader impacts component, or career proposals have a very large educational component. There's different things to do. One of the very obvious ones would be translating your science into educational materials that can be used in classrooms. We can then train educators, and those are fantastic multipliers. If we write a curriculum and we offer online workshop and we have somewhere between 40 and 80 teachers participate and they all teach 100 kids, that's a lot of broadening the impact of your science. So we can do that. We can write curriculum. We can also then measure and write, support in collaboration with you, present about the work, the ideas, or write some journal publications. In all of this, there's always opportunities for grad students or postdocs. We have in our team done over the last 3 years, probably, we've really broadened the work we've been doing into some educational innovations. And I just wanted to throw this out there that really excite us. So we've started developing scenario-based role-play games around natural hazards and have done a number of those, which are very interesting and fun and engaging ways to connect with students. Those can be also, gamification can be used in a lot of different settings. We're using a lot of storytelling as another way of getting away from the dry learning content. We have, especially with COVID, pivoted a lot into digital content delivery. And so we do a lot of online workshops, online meetings, and have a very strong network on how to recruit teachers or people to sign up. That for our teacher workshops, we often have between 70 and 100 plus teachers sign up. So we can really make sure we translate and get a good audience. We've also played a lot with 360 videos and Google Expeditions and story maps. All of those are fun tools where we would work with you on getting some interesting visuals, but it's something just something at the forefront of the technological innovation that we could work with you on developing, or develop videos or podcasts and then make them accessible online. Here now a couple more examples. We are running out of our group. We run an REU site, a research experience for undergraduates, and we have, so it's always easy to sponsor one more student into this cohort, and we can easily provide those connections. This summer we pivoted to a virtual program, but usually it's a 9-week program where you or your student or postdoc could be mentoring and also gaining easy mentorship opportunities. We have been for over a decade now hosting a climate literacy and energy awareness network. It's an award-winning database of educational resources around science and climate science. And there's lots of ways that you can connect to these projects. So if you say, well, I want to continue, as part of my broader impacts, I want to sponsor part of work or broaden the connections with the educational communities. There's lots of ideas we have, and that has over, 500,000 page views a year. So there's baked in broader impacts right there. Another couple examples just to show you with ESA class, the last couple of years, we've developed a workshop series, which we can, that could be something connected to your science. This was an example for risk management and safety, but there's lots of different workshops that could be developed also for your community. Another example is our new or a relaunch of our Science at Home series where we feature different scientists and we bring in, and this is especially in the COVID world, where we have a lot of participants weekly joining in. It's a very small commitment, but developing webinars or educational opportunities like that is always an option, and that's definitely on the lower end of what you would need to budget for. Last example that I want to give is we have now developed 2 massive open online courses. These courses have, you can see here some of the stats. We have co-developed with Western Water Assessment water in the Western US, a MOOC where we have over 60,000 lectures viewed in just a month. And we've just recently launched another MOOC with the Mosaic Expedition, where we also have thousands of students involved. And again, the commitment on the science side is pretty small and the impact is fairly large. So all of these are just ideas. Before I wrap up, I just wanted to quickly touch on evaluation and educational research. I said earlier that we have a team of evaluators and researchers that are social scientists thinking about what's the impact of the work you're doing. So we have a lot of expertise in surveys, focus groups, interviews, web analytics. You can see here some of the work that we've done with eye tracking. So just talk to us and we'd be happy to brainstorm. And again, reaching out to us doesn't mean you need to work with us. We are happy to point you in the right direction. Oh.
Thank you so much, Anna. And it's critical, right? Because a lot of agencies and a lot of solicitations are going to be looking for that broader impact about, and especially National Science Foundation, they're going to be looking to see what the scientist is saying is going to have broader impacts for their work. And Anna's team brings to you mechanisms for that. If you end up reaching out to her team and working with her in actual practicality, what ends up happening, and Anna, correct me if I'm get any of this wrong, but we, a CIRES pre-award, will build for you a separate budget for her team on your proposal submission that we will then integrate into your full proposal if the effort is at that level, right? And they're willing to help you and direct you to places that doesn't include that portion. But if you're assigning their team as a specific aspect on your work, then we will integrate with a separate budget onto your proposal submission. And so thank you, Anna. Can we open up to questions for you?
Sure.
Excellent. So does anyone want to take their mute off and ask Anna a question, or type it into the chat and Jenny can tell us? I never know how long to wait for a question.
I have a question. Why? Oh, you go. Mine was a joke. You go.
I was just going to ask, Anna, what's a good lead time for your team? You know, like say a scientist wants to include you and have your feedback, and say it's due in 2 weeks' time. Is that enough time? Do you want a longer period of time to review, ideally?
Just like anyone, the sooner you reach out, the easier it is for us to bring it in. We get contacted for people that say, my proposal's due on Monday, can we talk? And so we can do that too, but we really don't like doing that. And so if you want to really work with us, contact us a couple of weeks before when you kind of know what you're proposing, and we can just have a quick chat and go from there.
Okay, thanks.
Wow, and thanks for that flexibility. That's amazing. But also, you know, the much better development comes from a little bit more time and being able to address. So that's very good. Thank you. And I would like to turn over now to Susan Sullivan, Director of Diversity and Inclusion. And diversity and inclusion should have always been important, right? But people are learning how critical it is to have that in the forefront of their mind and be able to think for their projects. And Susan is here to talk to us about that.
Great. Hi, everybody. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you for this invitation, Tad, and the CIRES finance team. I'm going to preface what I have to say by the idea that diversity, equity, and inclusion in your proposals is just another way that we at CIRES are excellent in our competitiveness. We already saw that CIRES proposal writers are successful at higher than average rates, and paying attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion can just give you more of that competitive edge in your proposal, in addition to supporting interests that you may have. So this is a slide that outlines the scope of NSF's thinking when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is from a workshop that Dr. Julie Johnson did as part of a project I was on. The scope of NSF interests includes diversity, and diversity refers to the range of differences among people and their perspectives. It goes far beyond checking boxes in a simplistic idea of diversity. It's broad. Equity is different than equality. Equality is making sure that everybody gets the same thing. Equity is making sure that people get what they need to be able to succeed. Inclusion is making sure that all the people who are involved, including any stakeholders or community members or outreach audiences that you may be working with, ensuring that all the people can fully participate in all aspects of the work. And that can include the extent to which the ways that decisions get made. And accessibility, oftentimes when people think about accessibility, they think about technology. Accessibility goes beyond technology and whether or not people can read your website or have it be accessible to them through a screen reader or something like that. It includes how are you able to include differently abled people in your work. Recently, I saw a post to a listserv that was about someone going on a research cruise for the first time and what they were going to need in order to be successful on that research cruise and stay safe. So it's paying attention to all of those things. And I think it's good to note that this workshop I'm talking about was about how NSF looks at DEIA in grant-making practices, so looking at proposals that are coming to them. Now, some of the questions that came from NSF around this include who is on the team, including what diverse perspectives are on the team, what mechanisms exist so that all those people can have a voice. So that means that in your management plan, how are you going to talk about how the people have access to the decision making and are actually participating? When you're making something that's going to be used by somebody else, how are those voices being included to affect the design so that it's being sort of co-designed? And then how is DEI being included in evaluation? And that goes beyond this many people of this ethnic or racial background or gender came to my events. It goes well beyond that. And then lastly, how is the project accessible to diverse people, including through technology? Those are some of the questions that NSF was using to look at proposed projects that were coming to them. Okay, so earlier, Christine was talking about referencing the goals and strategies of the funding agency and looking at the solicitation. In more and more solicitations these days, there's explicit instruction about diversity and inclusion. And so it's important to look for those things when you're looking at the solicitation. And you can also reference the funding agency's strategic plans and what they say about diversity and inclusion. So the NSF strategic plan is here. The NOAA strategic plan is being edited, and the new plan is going to be released at the end of this month. And then the publicly available NASA plan goes through 2019, and I don't know when the new plan is coming out. But thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion in your proposal, that's one way that you can reflect a broader impact. It's part of building a research and education infrastructure. And it's one thing you can look at when you're designing your proposal. So in your project, some of the places that this may come in is in your mission and goals. When you're talking about your project, you may have goals that include work with communities. You may be doing outreach and education associated with your project. You may have a really intentional mentoring or internship aspect to your project, and all of that needs to go into your mission and your goals. It's not something that you think about later. It's integral to the project. You may think about it in your governance. So a lot of times, especially if you're writing a big project, you'll need to put in a very good project management section that includes mechanisms for how everybody collaborates and how their voices get heard. It's important to think about. I know a lot of times with all of the interest in doing work on diversity and inclusion, when everybody's on soft money, there's a lot of concern, but Susan, how do we pay for the people to participate in these things and to do professional development and to work in outreach and all that? And one way that you can do that is by building it into your proposals, just like any other activity that's important to you. So in your project, you can look at what might these activities require in terms of your team's time, and then just go ahead and build that money into your project as part of your scope. Including in your team is the ways that you diversify your team and how do you support your team. So that gets back to some of what Anna was saying about the postdoctoral mentoring plan. And I can also talk with you about that too. Thinking about your infrastructure and your policies. Anna mentioned the field safety workshop. Building in, making sure that when you talk about your field work, for example, that you've got policies that make sure that you're running an inclusive ship and that people know what to do if there are problems. That's one place to look. Another place to look can be, do you have a code of conduct for your team or for your project? Is it clear what the behavioral expectations are and what happens if they're not followed? Do you have agreements in your team about how you're all going to work together, even when it comes to small things? Do you have, say you're working with people and you're reimbursing community members to participate? Do you have policies that recognize that people have different financial realities and that sometimes a reimbursement after the fact doesn't work for people? And I know outreach has had to work with things like this with finance in the past. Thinking about your outreach and outward focus programs. So that includes things like community days, internships, mentoring, any kind of work that you might be doing beyond your team and in your discipline, or with anybody outside of your discipline. And then lastly, your project evaluation. Your project evaluation is a systematic way of looking at everything you're doing and making sure that you've built in ways to indicate your success and indicate where things need to be changed and be able to use that to report to your funding agency. So your diversity, equity, and inclusion goals are part of your project evaluation. It gives you something good that you can report to NSF. It lets you know the extent to which you're meeting the things that you want to accomplish with your project. So I've worked with a few proposal teams, and these are some of the things that I've done in my role to work with the team. Now, I can advise and review your proposal from a DEIA perspective, that critical friend review that Christine was referencing. And in order to do that, I really like to be part of the team from the beginning, because it's the beginning when you're formulating what your goals and missions and team are. You may want to have collaborators that you haven't collaborated with before. You may have collaborators and co-Is from other institutions that maybe aren't R1 institutions, or maybe they're minority serving institutions, places you haven't collaborated with before. I can provide diversity, equity, and inclusion training for your team, and you should plan to include the time for your team to participate in programming like that. I can help you review your policies and the things that you're going to do in your project around your values, your norms, I've worked with other teams on developing codes of conduct for big projects. I can help you if you're going to be hiring as part of your team. I can help you with that, and you can talk about that. I can help you develop inclusive application processes. If you're doing something that's going to have a workshop or something like that, I can help you know how to do that so that it's you're recruiting from a broad pool and your process for choosing people is inclusive. And then if you need help establishing partnerships where you haven't been before, I can help you establish some of those partnerships. In this work, it means that my network is pretty diverse, and I always recommend that everyone try to diversify their professional network, but I can help you with that now. So those are just some of the things that I can help with. Again, my request is that you reach out as soon as you know you're going to propose. And then the easiest way to talk about that is to get on my calendar. And I have this says information interview, but it's really anything. So you can get on my calendar at this link. You just go there and pick a time. And any time that's open at this link is available for you to just pop on, tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll get on and have a conversation about your project. Just like Anna was saying, there's no obligation to work with me. I'm here to help CIRES. I'm here to further our diversity and inclusion mission, the part of our mission, and to help us be as successful as we can. So with that, I'll close it out. And if there's any questions, I'm here to take them.
Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you for providing this service for CIRES scientists and allowing us to be even more competitive out there, and also to be just doing the right thing with how we work. And I know I'm learning more and more about this, so they're very enlightening to thank you so much for joining our session and presenting for everyone. Can we please open up for questions for Susan? Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask Susan a question.
Susan, I wanted to ask you if you wanted to tell the group about your team's group.
Yeah, I would love to. In fact, if I can, I'll find a link to it. So everybody, if you want to kind of learn more about what's happening both at CIRES and at CU, the best way to do that is to join the CIRES D&I community of practice. And there's a team space that I am trying to find the link to right now. And what happens there is we do have a monthly meeting. Last month we talked about microaggressions and microaffirmations and what the implications are for us in our workplace. This month we'll be talking about how to establish positive group behaviors. And then also just day to day, there's events happening all over CU and CIRES. And so it's a good place for people to ask questions. There's right now a discussion going on about inclusive hiring and how you put things in job ads and what you can see in a job ad, all kinds of things that people say in there. So I am going to stop talking for 1 second and find the link and put it in the chat. But last I looked, we had 74 members. And so that's something that's more agile than the mailing list. You can also sign up for the mailing list on the CIRES Diversity website. The team space is a space where you can just pop in anything that's relevant. It's more active. I can't just send everything that everybody sends me to the mailing list. So this is the place where you can find out more. And also you can find connections to other people who are interested in diversity at CIRES. You can find other people in your team even, maybe that you didn't know were interested.
Hey, I have a question for both Susan and Ted, and maybe I see Andy weighing on there. If they're asking, if funding agencies are asking about diversity and inclusion in the proposal, if and when it's funded, do the PIs need to report what level of diversity and inclusion they did provide when it's awarded, like in the annual reports? Is that called out in those?
Yes, it should be. If it's in the solicitation, well, in general, it's something that is smart and right to look at anyway.
Mhm.
And in some solicitations, it's a big focus. So if this is part of your project, then yes, you should be reporting on it as part of your annual or quarterly reports. It's
Okay.
just the accomplishments of your project, just like your science.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank our guest speakers, Susan, Anna, Christine. Thank you so much for all this added information and additional support services for our CIRES scientists. And my team, thank you very much for doing all the heavy lifting with the proposals and submissions. And thank you for addressing and coming to the meeting. And I want to thank all the attendees for coming just to hear what we have to say. And I hope it has been valuable for you. I guess with that, we're open to any other questions at all for any group. If anybody wants to shout them out, we'll stay out there. And but if not, then thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
So we're open to anybody wanting to just take off mute and ask us anything. Feel free to email us when you do come up with a question, and we will get back to you as soon as we can and provide as best information that we can. Thank you for coming. And I guess that's our session for today.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Ted.
Thank you. Bye.